Hi, Leandro. Thanks for joining me.
No, thanks a lot, Paul, for the opportunity. Pleasure to be here with you.
We've got a really good sense of client optimism around AI and ML, as well as some of the broader hurdles. First, I want to start with the balance between growth and cost. We see that firms are getting more applications for credit, but at the same time, the volume of defaults is increasing. How can machine learning stop so many customers ending up in default? What advantages can AI bring?
That is a key question because we have been hearing about AI and machine learning for quite a long time. And we know some businesses, they already start working with that. Now, the point is we have a new economic scenario post-pandemic with the rising inflation that it's leading precisely to the point of your question. Now, where I do believe machine learning has a role to play, it's to identify precisely these new patterns that are emerging from this new economic situation. And let me explain myself a little bit better. The point is the following. We also do have access to new data sets. So speaking about transactional data, the whole open banking framework, web data, we can use machine learning to explore these non-linear relationships that they were hidden in these data sets that are now available to us, and then we can catch changing behaviors, for example, and such behaviors could help us to identify where we may have a new default that with the traditional techniques or potentially with the traditional data sets that we have been using in the past, well, they may have not been caught. So I think precisely this power of machine learning and identifying this new pattern combined with these new data sources, it's where we are going to solve this problem.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
To get the most out of AI, businesses need sufficient data and the right data management infrastructure. These two key challenges were clearly highlighted in our research. Why are these challenges so important from the perspective of AI?
Well, they are relevant because your model, whether if it's AI or not, but if it's AI, make it even easier, it's as good as the data that you get in. So there is a cliche that it call it garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't fix the way that you work with your data, and believe me, this problem, it's older than machine learning itself. You cannot unlock the real power of ML models, for example. So being very practical, usually organizations or financial firms or institutions in general, they have very fragmented data sets in very different places. Whenever they need to do any kind of analysis or to build a new model, they need to pick up those pieces together, try to make a Lego out of it, and then start building the model. Now, imagine if you can get all of this together at a single place, and then from there, you already have your starting point to work your models out. That will change dramatically how good you can leverage machine learning and AI. So if there is an additional point that I do recommend firms to think about it, it's about data governance and how they are going to organize all the legacy of data and all this treasure they have in-house in order to really push towards the machine learning world.
Okay, thank you. And with that connected subject, we see a lot of businesses from our research moving their analytics platforms to the cloud. And we've covered some of those reasons, but why do you think it's so important to have cloud infrastructure for the use of advanced analytics?
Now, cloud computing, it's one of the things that supports and allows this that we just comment to happen. And it's funny because some years ago, there was a lot of prejudice with the cloud, because some would say that was not secure enough or the data would not be protected enough, and that it's not true. It has never been true. And now with those things fading away, what we have seen is a kind of a strategic movement of firms towards to the cloud utilization, especially because you can build, for example, private clouds. So you don't need to really worry of having your data publicly navigating throughout the web. Now, with that in place, it's important to notice that this utilization of cloud computing is strategic. One, because if you have to grow, you just pay as you go, and then you don't need to worry in planning the infrastructure up front as you would do with the regular servers type of work that we used to do in the past. If you need just some extra power for a specific task, you can use elastic computing to get it done and then come back to the point where you were. So you just pay for the extra utilization that you got, not for the whole build of a new infrastructure that potentially will be there without utilization for a while until your demands grow again. And if you think about that, well, why not just say that cloud computing utilization, it's eco-friendly, it's sustainable? Because imagine every single organization in the planet having to manage their own servers with energy consumption. Now, if you centralize that, you can for sure be more sustainable, save energy, and of course, save your costs. And with all of this together, you can build your data lake or your data warehouse in the cloud, solve the issue of data governance, having access to more innovative tools that are available in the cloud, so you complete the end-to-end cycle of machine learning from data to model deployment in one single place. So that's why I mentioned in the beginning that it's a strategic decision moving to the cloud.
Okay, thank you. And elastic computing, I like that. That's a really good term. And Leandro, I want to come on to synthetic data. I know Experian are very excited about this, clients are very excited about it, but can you just give me a view of what do you think synthetic data will bring for organizations with a particular lens on credit risk?
Now, from my perspective, and actually from what I started to see already about its utilization, it's helping to solve two things. One, data gaps. So potentially, where we don't have enough available data, we can use the synthetic data to augment on a specific data set so we can get something done better. And a practical example, it's buy now, pay later. So this is something recent where the data has just started being accumulated. Now, can you do or can you build AI models out of it? Yes, you could. But of course, would be much better if you had more data. Now, how can you solve the issue? Well, you solve that issue with synthetic data. So this is a very relevant point. And then you have the other element that synthetic data helps, that it's the regulation or the compliance issues. Since you are dealing with artificial data, and although it may sound a little bit counterintuitive, it helps businesses because the data there, it's of course completely anonymized. It's not even belonging to a real person because you have created throughout algorithms and simulations new data points. So for example, we would never know because it's actually not true that Paul, for example, it's in that data set. So I can play around and build my models without any of the data privacy concerns that are emerging more and more to the business coming throughout GDPR and the new regulations to come. So if you think about those two main challenges that are part of the machine learning world, synthetic data address them quite easily.
Wow. And you're excited about it, I can tell.
Well, a lot. I cannot wait to touch the first projects already on this area. Actually, we have been doing not just research, but some practical applications. But what I'm telling and saying is that I want to see a much larger utilization of it, because we know, for example, the big techs, they are already on it. So for our industry, it's the time to get there.
Oh, great. I want to move on to machine learning delivery. This problem around explainability was in last year's research, the challenge of transparent ML models. What's your thoughts around the advancement of that, and what are the big problems that are still around with regards to explainability of models?
Well, I see two main points in that area. and especially if we link to what we have seen evolving in the last 12 months, for example, is still the framework of a machine learning explainability. It's missing for most organizations. So they don't know exactly when or where to start doing it. And the reasons are, well, they are still missing the knowledge of doing it. They are still missing which framework they are going to use, because actually there are some options available in the market, and nobody actually has yet an idea to which one they are going to stick with, although it seems that we already have a favorite, that are the Shapley values. But it's still the combination of those two elements are making this task yet a little bit hard to be completed. Now, I have an advice in order to sort it out. If we think from the very beginning of the machine learning development process, if we start thinking on the explainability there, so choosing the right algorithm, the architecture that helps you to get a better explainability in the end, as well the framework and building the knowledge on the top of it, you will get much more prepared by the end of the process. So I think firms, they need to think from the very beginning in the explainability, because as we said, new regulations are going to come, so they need to be prepared upfront, so they will potentially be saving costs and saving time, and then we'll have everything prepared when it comes.
Okay, great. And I want to just touch on regulation, because you mentioned it there. We have, regulatory bodies worldwide scrambling to get some sort of AI governance in place. And in the EU, the EU AI Act is due to be coming in. And businesses are quite naturally concerned about what is that going to mean for them. Can you just touch upon that for a moment in terms of what do you think are the big implications for businesses and any advice that you have for them?
Sure, absolutely. Well, by the time that we are talking or speaking, the legislation is not fully developed yet. But with the information that we have so far, there is one major implication coming. Credit risk assessment or any kind of services or solutions for credit worthiness, they are by definition being classified as a high risk. Now, does that mean that they are going to be prohibited? Not at all. It just means that they are going to require additional layers of decency with the new regulation in order to be approved to go to the market. So as we had with the data and the GDPR, it's equivalent to what we are going to have with the machine learning models and the new EU AI Act. So extra layers of compliance, extra layers of how to prove that your model is not being biased, it's giving a fair decision, that you know what is happening when you take that decision, and that connects us with the explainability element that we just discussed. And then you have to store that. One may say, well, Leandro, we have been doing that already for years because the existing regulation address, if not all, most of it. Yes, that it's true, but they are really true for the banking system. The EU AI Act is going to expand its reach to the rest of the whole industries that are working with AI or ML in Europe. Now, coming back to our industry, so what we need to pay attention is to ensure that explainability, that actually this point connects to the other, all the other ones that we have discussed. So the data governance, how you build better models, how you explain that models, all of these are going to have to be documented in a way that it's going to be the way required by the legislation, and the ones that they comply with that are going to be okay. So very likely institutions, they're going to rely on external consultancy and extra help in order to get the job done. So this is also creating new business opportunities for many other sectors as well.
Okay, yeah, really interesting. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you.
And I'd like to finish with some success stories, if I may, Leandro. We know from our research that businesses are now looking at AI as a revenue generator, as opposed to just a kind of process efficiency improvement tool. And I know you're involved in a lot of AI projects at Experian. So can you give me a sense of some of the advantages that businesses listening can benefit from AI practically?
Yes. Well, I could have some very good stories that we could spend the afternoon talking about, but in order to be really practical, there is one case that I like very much, that is the utilization of transactional data to understand and actually to know more about the income of a portfolio. And that particular institution, they had a challenge because a large portion of their portfolio had unknown income. So which makes hard for them in order to potentially upsell, cross-sell, offer new services and manage, of course, the risk better. However, they had the answer at home together with machine learning. They had transactional data. So the solutions where you combine transactional data with machine learning models can help you to get these behaviors and estimate the income of the consumers. So you fill that out, all the gaps that you had, and then you can start generating more revenue out of it. Like that. So it's as simple as that, with something that you have at home, and then the machine learning techniques. In the middle of it, if you still think that something is missing, then you jump in the synthetic data. So this particular case, I find that it's one of the best examples that we could have when combining the power of AI and ML plus open banking and transactional data. Another one, it's of course a framework that we have been working on for machine learning explainability. And this is going to be a way of implementing it at scale, being model agnostic, meaning it doesn't matter which kind of a technology or which kind of methodology you have been using to develop and deploy your models, we are going to be able to explain them in an easier way. So the same way that we were used to do with the traditional scorecards, you can do now with the machine learning, and they will be no longer black boxes. So this would be a second example that I could give you of success stories that we are experiencing and then we are witnessing in the market in the terms of AL and AI, particularly combined with this new data environment that it's at our disposal.
Great, Leandro. Great. And obviously some really good practical examples of AI in action, which is a nice way to finish, actually.